In this video, we're going to learn how to use the starargs construction in Python. So when you define a function in Python using the def keyword, you typically will define a function that takes some arguments that you're going to use within the body of the function. And oftentimes this will be a specific number of named arguments that are not going to change. But in some cases, you might want to write a function that's able to take in a variable number of arguments. So if you want to do that, you can use the starargs construction. So we'll show how to do that. We'll say def, then we'll give our function a name, add all, and instead of providing a fixed number of arguments, we're going to say starargs. What that is going to do is allow us to pass any number of unnamed arguments to this function. And then within the function, we can do something with all of those arguments all at the same time. In this function, it's just going to return their sum. So we're just right away going to say return sum of those arguments. So we can run this add all function after defining it on any number of different arguments. In this case, we're just going to pass in the numbers 1 through 5, and it's going to add them all up. And we can just add more numbers onto this if we want to, run it again, and it will take in those extra arguments and include them in the function. Now, when you use this starargs construction, all the arguments that are passed in this args variable are accessible within the function as a tuple. So to show an example of that, we're going to define a new function that's just going to print those arguments, and we'll call it with some arguments here and see what the result is. And when we run this, we can see that a tuple is printed of all of those arguments. If you want to use the arguments passed with starargs as a list instead of a tuple, it's easy to do that within the function body just by putting starargs within a list. So we'll give an example of that. We're going to call this one extract args, and then within there, we're just going to put starargs within this list, and that will extract all of these arguments into a list that we'll save here. And then we're just going to print it out to show that it's a list instead of a tuple. So we'll run that, and we can see that all the arguments are now enclosed in square brackets, so it's been converted to a list. Now, one other final thing that is worth noting, when you're using starargs, the thing that is important is the star symbol at the beginning of the statement. The args keyword could actually be anything. It doesn't have to be args. It's just a Python convention to say starargs, but in theory, you could use a different word to pass in those arguments if you wanted to. So we'll just give an example of what that could look like. We're going to define a function called other word for args, and instead of saying starargs, we're saying star params. Maybe somebody is just used to calling things parameters and they wanted to use that instead of args. Well, that functions in the exact same way as starargs. We just called it something different. So within this function, we can print all of those parameters by saying print params, just like we could have if this was called args instead. So that's the basics of using the starargs construction. If you found this video useful, you can drop a like or hit subscribe, and thanks for watching.